an autoclave is probably going to be one of your biggest purchases. Now, I know that I had loads of questions about autoclaves, and I know you guys do too. So we're going to head over to MDS Medical and ask Will. Will's going to answer all our questions in a rapid fire question session. Let's go. Hi Will.
Hi.
Question.
Yeah.
How do you place the autoclave bags, up or down?
Up or down, right. So, best way to pack for drying is paper side facing up. So when you've got the tray beneath there, on the drying part of the autoclave, the moisture can be turned into a gas, and it can come out the top of the pouch and sucked out. Whereas if it was the other way up, then when the moisture's trying to leave, it condenses on the plastic side and can't penetrate out. I don't think that's the best. We can go again if you want.
Next question.
Right.
Are there any other ways that you can do it then?
Conventionally, it's a tray system, but you can put them in a rack. That's called a toast rack, where you can fit your instruments in sort of standing up, and you can get about 14, 15 sets in there. So anything from a 12 litre onwards, you can fit a toast rack in. If not, conventional trays with the paper side up.
What about the overlapping of instruments on a tray?
It's all dependent. So with our autoclaves, because they're quite high powered, you can overlap. The rule of thumb is if they come out sensibly dry, which means there's not a lot of moisture in the packs when it comes out the autoclave, then it's doing its job. So if you are noticing some moisture in the packs, it's either down to the incorrect cycle or there's too much. So what I'd do is I'd take a layer off and then run it again, and if that comes out nice and dry, you're doing the right thing.
Okay, next question. So what if they're still wet when you take them out?
From experience, so the last time I went out, it was because it was put on the wrong cycle. So there's pouches and there's certain drying times you can get on different cycles. I know on our autoclaves we have a non-vacuum and 2 vacuum cycles. Obviously the vacuum's for the pouches, but we have variable drying on each cycle. So if we have a solid, a porous and a hollow's got longer drying than the porous, so we would suggest putting on a hollow cycle if it was coming out. And if they're still wet after that, it points towards either overloading or the autoclave might have a malfunction of some sort.
Do we need to write the cycle number on the packs that are autoclaved?
If you want to relay them to patients, then yeah, what I would suggest is, we see it a lot in dental, because they work very similar to you guys, and they have almost like a stamp where you can get the cycle number on. What you do is you take the cycle number off the autoclave and stamp them on the pouches. Then what you can do is when you use the pouches or these sets of instruments on a client, you can write the cycle number on the client's notes, and then it's traceable back to that pack of instruments. So a lot of people use the little pressure cooker type ones. They're non-vacuum, and some of them don't even have printers. There's no way of telling what cycle you're on, so then you can't relate it to the patient. But if you're going for what is known as like best practice, or the gold standard of sterilising, you're better off with a printer, a vacuum autoclave if you're doing domiciliary, so you've got sealed instruments taking out to your patients, and then you've got traceability for if anything was to go wrong, you can relate that set of instruments to the cycle and the patient to say I sterilised on this time, on this date, before I used it on my client.
I've got another question, and something about putting different metals in the autoclave. Can you do that?
If you're putting anything in an autoclave and you're unsure about it, always contact the manufacturer and get written proof to say that yes, they recommend using this on 134 degrees sterilisation, because if anything does go wrong, you've got almost like a covering layer.
So how would you recommend the different cycles to be used?
Oh, okay. So we've got 3 different cycles that we use at 2 different temperatures. 134 degrees solid, porous and hollow. Now solid is what is known as a non-vacuum cycle. And we recommend the way to use that cycle would be if you've got a clinic or a clinically clean area, and there's no need for pouches, what you can do is you can sterilise on a quick non-vacuum cycle and use those instruments within 3 hours in a clinically clean area. Anything else, if you've got anywhere to travel or any ways of cross-infection, or you want to store them until the next day, that's always recommended to be done in a sterilisation pouch. So you can seal that first, then it goes in the autoclave, runs through on a vacuum cycle, and when it comes out, it's nice and dry, and you've actually got, in dental or HCMC, you've got 12 months shelf life till you need to use those. So the benefit of a vacuum autoclave is you can self-seal first, sterilised and store, and that will be sterile until the point of opening in front of your customer or client.
If I sterilise my instruments without the pack and I took them out of the autoclave, can I put them in a pouch afterwards?
I mean, you can, but it's a sterilisation pouch, not a sterile pouch. So unless the pouch has been through the autoclave on a vacuum cycle and it's come out nice and dry and sterile, then it won't be sterile. So you're effectively putting instruments that have been sterilised in the non-sterile environment. So it's technically not sterile now.
And that would be the same if I put it in a container as well?
It is. I mean, if you have a non-vacuum autoclave, there is only so much you can do. I mean, you'd have to thoroughly disinfect the box, or, I mean, you can't really sterilise a pouch without a vacuum autoclave, otherwise it'd be damp and wet, which is a really good environment for bacteria to grow again. So obviously, if you've got a non-vacuum autoclave, you've got to do the best you can, but obviously gold standard or best practice is to have one.
Can I ask some advice about buying second-hand autoclaves?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't sell second-hand autoclaves, but if you were to buy them, what would I recommend? If you're going to buy them, I'll buy them with a full service from a reputable company. Look out for how old it is. I mean, if you're buying something that's 10 years old, it might be coming towards the end of its life, so I wouldn't expect too much out of it. And what you're buying, go on advice. Look in forums, look for who have I bought second-hand autoclaves off, maybe do a bit of research of who you're buying it from. Or, I mean, we recommend, we don't sell them ourselves, but often recommend brands that we can look after, because that's another big thing, is you either could be buying someone else's problem or buying something that someone else hadn't been able to obtain parts for. So that can cause some issues further down the line.
In terms of getting our autoclave serviced, is this mandatory to be done every year?
Yeah, so the autoclaves themselves, as a minimum, you need doesn't matter if it's been used once or 1,000 times, you need to have a pressure vessel inspection. Now that is to say where the steam is in the chamber, whether it be a little pressure cooker type or a full vacuum autoclave, you need to make sure that's safe. So the devices to keep the steam in, the locking devices, the door closing devices, the actual vessel itself passes a PVI, or a pressure vessel inspection. And then while we're doing that, we make sure that the autoclave is running correctly we do a full service as well. So all your filters are clear and clean, your pump's got the right capacitor on it, make sure you're using the right water, door seals and gaskets and other bits as well. So,
can you give advice to somebody who's just started out as a foot health practitioner and is looking to buy an autoclave? What would you advise?
I would certainly advise going for vacuum. Ask companies, if when you're starting out, you can buy budget lines of companies, you can, and do your research in what you want to buy. It is a big outlay, but it's an investment. That's what I'd look at for the autoclaves. I'd say for a vacuum, so you can sterilise your pouches. Make sure, hopefully you've got the room at home, so do your due diligence before buying something. You might buy something massive, it doesn't fit. Make sure it's the right environment and get in with the right people. So, we're always here for offering advice out for where to go with autoclaves or how to install them yourself at home if you want to save money. I'd just say do your research before buying an autoclave.
So what water do you put in an autoclave?
Right, don't put tap water in, and boiling the kettle does not suffice either. Some budget brands of deionized or distilled water aren't what they say on the tin, so to speak. So there's some brands out there that I've been out to clients' houses and it's just scale on in the autoclave. We recommend buying a TDS meter. You just literally pop that on, it gives you a reading. The two prongs on the bottom will give you a reading of your water, and as long as it's below 10, that is good enough for our autoclaves. And that means you can test all they're about £25 I think, but it's a lot cheaper than a repair. Distilled, deionized, we've got reverse osmosis. If you distill the water yourself, you can buy a distiller. Again, different qualities, and that's a minefield in itself, but always ask advice. But yeah, definitely these testers for £25 to test the water before it goes into your autoclave, important. You can buy them from ourselves. They're about £25. You probably find something cheaper online, but I mean, I know these ones work because these are calibrated, but Yeah, they're just called TDS meters. TDS is total dissolved solids in your water, and yeah, look after the water that goes into your autoclaves, otherwise you could be getting big pills.
Do we need to test our water in our autoclaves?
Well, you test the water with a TDS meter, but there are other tests for autoclaves. Now, there are tests that come with the autoclaves, mainly they're aimed at dental. As podiatry, you just need to know that you're getting the right temperature at the right time. Now, that's done on the printer you've got on the side, or a printer wherever you have that. Or you can use little TST strips. So you've got the printer to say that the autoclave thinks it's doing the right job, and a TST strip as a colour indicator to say that that's passed as well. So.
Right then, thank you, Will, for answering all these questions. Really do appreciate it.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed your time at MDS Medical. You're called the ionized or battery top up or whatever.
Doing a selfie.
Okay.
Will. Oh, I'm so greasy on that side. Come on this side. Okay.